Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I want to be clear that there are people who I find interesting to cover, things that I want to cover, things that I want to talk about, and things that I don't, and people that I don't want to talk about. However, what I cover is largely not dictated, but it's influenced heavily by what people are talking about and asking about on Discord. For example, I received via email Project Constitution, aka Colin, aka Piss Jug. I received his trifold via email several days before I covered it. And the reason why I ended up covering it is because people in my Discord discussed it. And I'm like, well, apparently it's interesting enough that people in my Discord are discussing it, even though I think it's just absurd on its face, and so I covered it. Previously, before I invited Colin to leave my Discord, he was in there asking me to cover his allegedly he has a criminal protective order or a harassment prevention order or some sort of a restraining order against Chille. Allegedly. I haven't looked into it. Don't care. And allegedly he has a criminal action pending against Chille in Maryland. And allegedly there's a trial scheduled, and none of it made sense because Chille isn't in Maryland. And my understanding of criminal procedure, while I have no understanding of criminal procedure in Maryland specifically, I've never looked into it. One of the more fundamental things is that in order to start a criminal proceeding after you have the criminal complaint and or the grand jury indictment, the next step is to actually get custody of the defendant. Normally what happens is the defendant is arraigned, and you normally can effectuate an arraignment, i.e. being brought before the judge to plead guilty or not guilty. Normally that's effectuated either by sending out a summons and having the person appear voluntarily, or an arrest warrant being executed and the state going out and arresting the person and bringing them involuntarily in front of the judge for the arraignment. And it just, none of it makes sense to me that a trial would be set before Maryland got their hands on Chille. The concept of personal jurisdiction, while it's really a civil concept, it still kind of applies. It still applies in the criminal arena. You have the right to have notice of what you're being accused of, etc. So they have to essentially serve their complaint on you and get physical custody of you so that the court has personal jurisdiction over you to render a judgment. So nothing in that case makes sense to me, but I don't like Colin, and I don't care enough about what Colin's doing in a state where Chille isn't located, and what that state doesn't really matter because Chille isn't in Maryland, and it's not affecting Chille at all, so who the fuck cares, right? Well, anyway, people in my Discord yesterday were talking about Colin's new claims that the judge and the DA in his misdemeanor fucking case, in the misdemeanor case of the state of Maryland versus Chille de Castro, allegedly, that the judge and the district attorney are working to get Chille extradited to Maryland. And the judge didn't want to conduct the trial of Chille via Zoom. I mean, I'm not saying that a trial of a defendant can't happen while the defendant is appearing remotely. But generally speaking, if a person is in the custody of another state, or if the state wants to prosecute him and the feds want to prosecute him, normally one will prosecute him and they'll finish out their whatever and then give him back to the other side. I know that there can be variations in that, but none of this really makes sense over a misdemeanor, right? So but putting that aside, so he says that the judge and the DA are working on it. The judge is issuing a bench warrant to get Chille to appear. Why would the judge have to issue a bench warrant? There's already a criminal complaint, so an arrest warrant would already have issued. None of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. But the kicker is the judge and the DA have no power to extradite Chille. Zero power. Extradition. And I looked into this back when people were talking about Chille getting extradited to Ohio. And I'm like, it's not happening. The state has to want Chille. Ohio has to want Chille. Now, I don't normally see... I always pause before I give out this kind of information in general because YouTube is full of idiots. But I'm hoping that my audience is not the kind of people who are going to like do something stupid like try to brigade governors or whatever. But the governor is the only person who can demand another state extradite someone to them for a criminal proceeding. Governor A sends a request to Governor B, said, hey, you have this guy. We want to try him for this criminal matter, or he's a fugitive from justice in this criminal matter. And so we're asking you to hold him. Once you got him, let us know. We will send somebody over to get him and bring him back. That's the way the extradition process works. It's not bounty hunters. It's not all this other stupid shit that people have been talking about. The amount of stupid people giving out information on the internet boggles me. I might put a heart by your name, but you're a fucking idiot. Ugh. So that's the way extradition happens. Now, Ohio would have a really easy time of getting California or Nevada, whoever had him, to extradite him. If Ohio gave a single shit about him, there is a federal law, it's 18 U.S.C. something, I don't know, but it governs extradition in certain circumstances. If the person basically commits the crime in state A and then flees to state B to avoid prosecution for that crime, then state A can ask state B, basically demand state B, to extradite him. And state B would have to extradite him. Now, there are some protections in place. He'd be entitled to an extradition hearing, yada, yada, yada. But broad strokes, that's the way it works, right? State A says, person committed crime in my state and has fled to state B. State B, we're asking you to catch him and hold him, and then we'll send an agent to come get him and bring him back to our state. And the federal law prevails. State B has to comply. State B has to comply in that scenario. There is a slight distinction, though, in Maryland, because Chille never did a crime in Maryland. Now, there is a compact that various states have entered into. Nevada has entered into this compact, and Maryland has entered into the compact. And this particular compact covers extraditions that are outside of that federal mandate. And I haven't done research into the nuances of this particular compact, but I have read Maryland's version of it, and I have read Nevada's version of it, at least the statutes. I haven't done any research into the case law. But if a person commits a crime in Maryland from Nevada, and Maryland wants to prosecute the guy for having broken Maryland law, criminal law, from Nevada, then Maryland, through their governor, can send a request to extradite the person from Nevada to Maryland. And that's not governed by federal law, so I don't know how enforceable it is. I don't know if the Nevada governor has the opportunity or ability to be like, I don't really care to. I don't know, but it would come. But my point is, it comes from the governor. Maryland the state of Maryland would have to give a shit about Chille and about Colin and about any communications that Chille may or may not have sent to Colin that may or may not have violated Maryland criminal law, enough to spend a lot of money, well, a lot of governor time, first of all, and then a lot of money to send an agent out there, pick him up, transport him back. I'm going to press X to doubt. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I have given odds of it's about 1 in 100, 1,000, a million, about 1 in a billion. I gave odds of about 1 in a billion. It is possible that Maryland will have Chille extradited. It is not impossible. I'm just saying it is highly unlikely. It is even less likely that Maryland will have him extradited than Ohio would have him extradited. Because Ohio already started criminal proceedings against him. Ohio has that federal law that makes it mandatory that Nevada would extradite him. And still, Ohio's like, it's a misdemeanor. Don't really care. I cannot imagine that the governor of Maryland would be so bored and so concerned about a dude who sleeps in his car, does sovereign citizen-y stuff, and pisses in a jug. I can't imagine he'd be so concerned about this that he'd be like, you know what? We need to get this Chille guy extradited because, whoo. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? There are bigger fish to fry. There are finite minutes in a day for a governor. There are finite dollars in a budget for extradition and other criminal matters. Misdemeanors are low on that list. And nothing that Colin has said makes much sense. So, if you are in the camp of rooting for Colin, for Chille get extradited, and you believe a word that comes out of Colin's mouth, I'm sorry, you're dumb. I can't change that. It just is. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. There's your daily lesson in extradition. Oh, one other thing. Let's talk about grifting. My definition of grifting, I can explain with a very simple, easy to understand example. Let's say there's Pastor A who believes in God, has a personal relationship with God, believes the tenets of his scripture and preaches his scripture, and demands tithes from his church and uses those tithes to support himself and his family. That's Pastor A. Pastor B does not believe in God, does not believe in the tenets of his scripture, does not have a personal relationship with this God, still teaches the scripture, and still demands tithes. So outwardly speaking, outwardly projecting, they both preach the scripture and demand tithes. The only difference between the two is that one is a believer and one's not a believer. Pastor A, in my opinion, for my definition, would not be a grifter. Is he taking money from people? Sure. Does he believe in a God that I don't believe in? Sure. Does he believe in scriptures that I don't believe in? Sure. Does that make him a grifter? No. Pastor B does not believe in God. Well, I don't believe in God. Pastor B does not have a personal relationship with God. I don't have a personal relationship with God. Pastor B does not believe in the scriptures. Well, I don't believe in the scriptures. But Pastor B is selling a product, demanding tithes and teaching a thing that he doesn't believe in. Pastor B is a grifter. Pastor A is not. Outwardly speaking, they're doing the same thing. And I believe you can have a different belief. I believe that Chille believes his bullshit. I believe that Chille believes that Terry v. Ohio is a bad law, and that torture cuffs are bad, and that you could do all these things, all these ridiculous notions that Chille has. I think Chille believes in them. I think Chille thinks that they would make society better. I don't believe that they would make society better, just like I don't believe what Pastor Ray believes. I think Chille's ideas are nonsense. I think Chille's understanding of the law is pure crap. But I think Chille believes it. Chille puts his neck out for it. Chille goes out and he risks being arrested over it. Chille ends up getting arrested over it. Chille is paid tens of thousands of dollars, allegedly, in attorney fees fighting it. I think Chille believes. Now, is Chille a bad person? Sure. But does Chille believe? That is the crux. That is the basis on which I am judging whether or not you're a grifter. Does Colin believe in the bullshit he's selling? No. Colin is chasing a dollar. That's all Colin does. One of the many reasons why I don't monetize my channel is because you can't accuse me of being a grifter. You can't say, well, John doesn't believe in what he's saying. I'm saying it without getting paid for it. I'm saying it with social consequences coming to me for saying it, i.e. by idiots out there trying to talk to the state bar or whatever because they don't like what I'm saying. I am not getting any monetary reward for this. You can't accuse me of being a grifter. But just because someone's getting a monetary reward doesn't make them a grifter. Politicians, there's two kinds of politicians. The politicians who believe what their shtick is and who face the social and political ramifications of it, and politicians who don't believe and they flip on a moment's notice. They go whichever way the wind is blowing. So one is a grifter, one is principled. I think that's the difference. Either you're a grifter or you're principled. And while I may disagree with your principles, while I may disagree with your politics, while I may disagree with your religious beliefs, etc., it doesn't make you a grifter. Just because you're making money, you're profiting off of your beliefs doesn't make you a grifter. Profiting off of lying does make you a grifter. And Chille's a liar. Well, no shit, Chille's a liar. But that doesn't mean he doesn't believe in this shit. He might be just using lies to move the ball down the road or whatever. I think he believes. I think James Freeman is a believer. I think James Freeman believes his stuff. You know, a lot of people call James Freeman a grifter. I don't think so. I think he's a believer. I may not agree with him on everything, but I think he's a believer. A lot of these people out there, a lot of the auditors out there are believers. Some of them are grifters, sure, but some of them are believers. A lot of the anti-frauditors, the frauditors, the like frauder troll and stuff like that, a lot of those guys are grifters. They have no beliefs, no strong beliefs. They go where the money is. Like Stout. He's a grifter. He goes where the money is. He was on one side. He figured out he can't make money there because he's dumb as dog shit. And so now he's an anti-auditor because that's where the money is. Grifter. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.